Hi everyone, my name is Courtney, and today I'm going to be discussing or kind of reevaluating my goals that I set out at the beginning of the year. This year I set definitive reading and personal goals for myself of what I wanted to accomplish. So we're going to see how I'm doing, but we're also going to reevaluate how that's been going. In January I set really ambitious goals for myself. These past 6 months I've just been really busy with stuff, which we'll get into why I've been so busy. So I haven't read the amount of books that I've normally read by this point. I've only read about 39 books, almost 40. And by June, I've normally read 50 to 60 books, so, we're a little bit behind. So the reevaluation is like just reevaluating the numbers, because I had certain numbers for like how many sci-fi books I wanted to read, how many queer books I wanted to read. So because I'm behind in my reading count, I'm not reaching the halfway point as far as like 8 indigenous books, but I want to look more at like the percentage of that than, the reading number, if that makes sense. First, I want to go through my personal goals, since that was the first thing I talked about in this video originally. I wanted to graduate and complete my thesis. I have done that. I did that in May. So I have a completed thesis assignment, which is a little bit over 100 pages of short stories, and then I graduated. So yay, one thing done. And then I wanted to submit one story to a publication because I'd never gotten up the courage to do that. I've done it. I've been rejected from everybody. So yay, I completed my goal. Honestly, that's what I thought was gonna happen, that I was gonna get rejected by everybody because I'm a new author, whatever. I'm just happy that I finally did it. The next thing I have is moving out of Boston and going to New York City, and I am currently apartment shopping with my friend, and hopefully we will be moving into a place by the end of August, beginning of September. I'm in the process of looking for a job, and we'll see how that goes. And then the next thing that I wanted to do was work on a art Instagram or art portfolio. I have been doing that. It kind of changed from like digital art stuff into just like my anime art, which is fine, but I've been enjoying doing that, just like having like a casual Instagram that nobody is on, just kind of curating stuff that I'm drawing, getting myself to draw more. So that's been fun. You can follow if you want. But yeah, for personal goals, everything is either in the process or completed, so I'm where I wanted to be for my life, basically. As far as channel goals, I wanted to do more reading vlogs. I've technically filmed reading vlogs. I haven't uploaded all of them because my life is boring and I just don't end up putting them out there, but I've done some stuff. I wanted to do more reviews. I have done more reviews, and I have more that I want to do in the future, so I'm doing better. And then just more consistent posting. Been doing that. I think I've been doing a pretty good job of consistent posting, so if not every week, every other week, and just staying on top of my channel in general, which I'm really proud of. Since I don't have that many followers and I don't get that much interaction with people online, this is really my diary and just a place where I can just talk and a creative outlet for me. Being consistent is important. Making goals for myself and just doing stuff for myself is really important on this channel. So the next goal is my reading. So I wanted to read 50 books tentatively, 100 books overall. I've read 39, almost 40, so I'm a little bit behind. I will definitely read 50, but I will probably only get to like 80 or 90 by the end of the year, especially with the move and everything. The next thing I talked about in my goals video was that because I had finally caught up on my TBR, because I finally pretty much on track with keeping up on series, I was really able to make different kind of goals for myself this year that weren't so focused on like TBR or finishing series, which I can say has still remained the same. I only have like 10 books that I physically own right now. I made a Notion with like my entire TBR so that I can just look up books that I want based on like different tags, and I can pick out books when I feel like them. So I've done a pretty good job of staying on top of my TBR. And as far as series, the two series that I really wanted to finish were the Chaos Walking series and the final Ember in the Ashes book. So I've completed both of those books and I've completed both of those series, and those were the two series that I really wanted to read and stay on top of, so I'm really happy with that. And then as far as series that I want to stay on top of that either have new books or have new releases in the future, I haven't really done a good job of this, only because the books have not been released or were released in the second half of the year. But like the Every Heart a Doorway series, I read that book, so I'm on top of that series. Call Down the Hawk, the book just came out. I bought the book. I'm planning on rereading Call Down the Hawk before I go into Mr. Impossible, and I know I'm going to be reading that soon, so that's in the future. The Midnight Lie hasn't come out. The Girl of Paper and Fire third book hasn't come out. Ray Bearer hasn't come out. The Truth and Divine hasn't come out, so a lot of it is just waiting for the books to come out. But I have kind of stayed on top of the stuff that has been released recently. Another thing I wanted to do was author discography kind of thing, or reading an author's entire body of work. I've done that by reading Ted Chiang, but I would like to do another 1 or 2 videos about that. I really want to do Octavia Butler. That is like the person that I really want to focus on. So I'm hoping soon I can do another video where I read an author's entire body of work, or at least a couple books from Octavia Butler. I'm really looking forward to that if I can get it in somehow. And the big thing for my goals was, because I didn't have a lot of books on my TBR, because I didn't have a lot of series that I needed to stay on top of and finish, my big thing was getting up my reading stats to where I wanted to be. Partly it's to keep myself accountable for the things that I want to read. So it's not just representation, it's also just like I want to read more adult fantasy and sci-fi, but you know, the representation thing is a really big part of that. One, it's like to keep me accountable with how I want to be as a reader. If I'm not educating myself, I want to be learning about different experiences for myself and growing my own empathy. And then like a third reason is because by buying these authors and reading them, obviously I'm supporting them, I'm promoting them, and that is really important to me as a reader. Like I want my Instagram feed to be not just white authors. Like I want it to be a diverse list of books to recommend to people. I want my Goodreads reviews to be diverse. I want my booktube videos to be diverse. I want to be a diverse reader, and I want to share those books, and I want to share those recommendations. So for the first 6 months, I wanted to keep like an eye on it, but I didn't necessarily want to like force myself to read certain books or only read books to fill a check mark. I wanted to see how I naturally did with things, especially because I was like under time constraints with like how busy I was, and I had certain reading that I had to do for school. So I wanted to see what I was naturally picking up and if I was meeting those expectations. And you know, it ended up being a mixed bag, which I expected to meet some goals and not other ones. So for my queer books, I wanted a statistic of 50% queer books. I have surpassed that. So out of the 39 books I've read, 22 of them have been queer, so 56%. That's pretty good, especially because honestly most of my favorite books have been queer. For my non-white books, I wanted to get up to 54% non-white authors, and 25 of my 39 books have been by non-white authors, so that is 64% of my reading is not white. This is one of the stats that was really important to me. I wanted 54% of my books to be by BIPOC individuals, so that was really important to me. I will get into the particular statistics at the end of the year, but you know, I'm really happy because I read from people and ethnicities and countries that I haven't read from before or haven't read a lot of. So like while reading BIPOC is like really important, it's also just like reading different BIPOC experiences from different places is also really important to me. Like I can say I read 54% non-white authors, but if all those authors were because of manga, that's not what I want. For my black books, I want 20% of my reading to be black authors, and it was like a tentative goal of like 24 books or 2 books a month. So for 100 books, I should have read 2 books a month. I should have read 12 books by now. Again, I'm kind of behind. I've only read 6, which is 15% of my reading, which is not bad. It's better than last year, but it's not the goal I set out for myself. Like naturally I did, yes, read more black books, but I have to push myself a little bit more if I want to be reading at the level I want to be reading at. And then for indigenous books, I wanted it to be 8 books by the end of the year, or 8% of my reading. 3 of my 39 books have been by indigenous authors, which is 7.6%, while 3 is like 5 off from where I want to be. I'm very close to that 8% mark, but again, you know, I do want to do better. I want to read more. As for my other reading stats, like I said, I wanted to read more adult sci-fi fantasy and or speculative fabulist. Basically magical, spacey stuff that is for adults. I've done a pretty good job of this. 15 of my 39 books have been adult speculative sci-fi fantasy, and that is 39% of my reading, which is really good. I didn't have like a specific number in mind for this, I don't think. Maybe it was like 30, but at least in this one area, I've been better. And then the other thing I wanted to do was to read more nonfiction. I believe I read 3 last year, and I just wanted to read more than 3? Did I have a specific number? I think it might have been 7 or 8. And I've read 2.5. So I've read 2 nonfiction books and I'm halfway through another one. So once I read that, I will be at 3. And hopefully I can at least read 3 to 4 more books by the end of the year, which would get me up to the 7 mark. So yeah, that's my check-in for the year. I've completed some of my personal goals. I'm in the process of my other personal goals. And as far as reading, you know, I have a better estimate of what I'm keeping on top of and what I'm not. When I say reevaluate, I don't think I want to change any of my goals. I'd still like to meet all these things, but I want to meet them because I want to read those books, not because I want to pressure myself to finish a check mark. I want to complete those goals because I want to read those authors, not because I want to complete a list, you know? And I think it's a really hard balance of when you put these reading stats like on the internet for everybody to see, because it's like you're either bragging or you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You want to hold yourself accountable, but you don't want to checklist and tokenize what you're reading. There have been some like really interesting discussions of like how we put ourselves online and the performative activism of reading. And you know, you kind of just have to draw conclusions of what you want for your own personal page. And for me, at least this year and last year, I guess too, you know, holding myself accountable, really looking at the numbers, important to me because I want to know about myself and how I'm reading, and if I'm reading the way that I think I'm reading or the way I think I want to read. And I think this check-in was really important and something I wanted to do, to know what I'm naturally reading, to know what I'm naturally inclined towards, and to know how I'm supporting people that I want to support. I've met some of my goals, I haven't met others. It's going to be another busy 6 months, but it's also hoping that there's lots of time to read the books that I want to read. And it's just so hard because there's so many good books out there that I want to read. So, you know, in some ways you do have to prioritize how you're reading if you want to be reading a certain way. But yeah, I enjoyed this catch up. I enjoyed this little chat we had. I would love to know, you know, how are you reading? What are your favorite books? I just did the mid-year book freakout tag, and so I've obviously said what my favorite book of the year has been. So I'd love to know, but you know, did you set any goals for yourself? Have you met your expectations? What are some books you've read because of your goals that you've really enjoyed? I wanted to read more adult SFF, and I wanted to read more books by Black authors. My favorite book of this year is The Fifth Season, which fulfills both of those things. So I'm glad that I pushed myself to read that book. If you have any books like that, I would love to know. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later, and happy reading.